Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Experience. I'm Kieran Collins here, joined by Devin Williams, and today we have Darby Nelligan on. Darby, how you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good,
Good,
pretty
good.
good.
So obviously, I guess you went by Darby in high school. Like that's how my brother refers to you and like all his friends. But I guess like at West Point and like I guess beyond your high school career, you go by Koi Koi. So
Yeah.
I guess like where does that come from? And like I guess what would you prefer us to call you?
Um, Honestly, doesn't really matter. I just started going by Koi Koi because that's my middle name. Um, and after graduating high school, I did a trip to New Zealand and met up with some of my family and sort of got more in touch with my roots and just decided that uh, it should be a name that I have a lot of pride in and decided to start going by it, and evidently fed well into rugby because it is a very big sport in New Zealand, and then turns out I'm pretty good at it as well. So
It definitely turns out. I guess like we obviously just saw you won the national championship plus the MVP. So I guess like what was that like? Like that's pretty like crazy just to see. I didn't even know you played rugby to like I guess relatively recently. Just talked to my brother.
yeah, I mean it was incredible, especially after graduating Severn. I don't think I think if you had told me at any point throughout middle school, high school, that I was going to be playing rugby in college and would end up winning a national championship, I'd have told you you're crazy. Um, but just, I mean, being in that position, 3.5 years after starting playing rugby for the first time, I mean, it's indescribable, to be quite honest with you. Like, played in some big games before, but nothing really prepares you for something like that. And then just pure emotion, honestly, just overtook me after we won. Like, I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but you go through playing sports all your life, football, lacrosse, swimming, whatever it is, and then being at the pinnacle of any sport is just, it's incredible.
Definitely. Like I couldn't even imagine what that'd be like.
Mhm. And then kind of going off that, you talked about how you're a multi-sport athlete at Severn. How do you think that kind of contributes to you playing rugby? And what do you think the advantages are of playing multiple sports?
I mean, honestly, I think when you try to specialize in one thing, especially when you're in middle school or high school, you when you try to specialize in one sport or one skill, you end up leaving the rest of them lacking. So, um, trying to play multiple sports, you learn a lot of things from different disciplines, and there are definitely parts of each sport that I've played that translate into, the sport that I now play in rugby. But also, I think it has to do with being just a well-rounded individual, especially with playing team sports. I think one of the most valuable things, not only on the athletic field, but also in life, is understanding how to work with a team, and that's something that I think Severn taught me really well, and then even translated more at West Point. Just learning to work with a team, and at the end of the day, like, it's a team sport rather than an individual sport. So you got to care more about the end state for the team than you do about how you perform as an individual and how that stacks up.
Yeah, so I guess like we were talking to Mr. Christie about you as I was saying earlier. And one of the stories one of the stories he was saying about you was your sophomore year you had the choice to either do varsity or join the varsity lacrosse team or stay down on JV to get more play, have more playing time, more opportunity. And he said he thought it was very valiant of you, very honorable to stay down to JV and take like such a leadership role on that team. Are you smiling at that? I don't know if maybe he's making it a little more special than it was, or how do you feel about that? Because we
No, I mean,
how you're set
what
up
it,
all around.
what it came down to is I just, I liked the classes, underneath me. I think those group of guys were really great. And like, yeah, I did want a leadership role. I think been chasing that for, my entire life. I always want to, impact people the best way I can. And, I think feeding back into the first question about playing, it's like actually playing the sport. Like, I wouldn't have been playing if I had, been on varsity. And, that came with some self-awareness. Like, look, like, I'm not just a lacrosse player. I play other sports, so I'm not just going to focus on one. Um, and what it came down to is I actually want to be on the field and playing a sport. And I think my skills would be, I thought, or at the time, I thought my skills would be best served, and I'd be able to impact the most people if I was playing on JV instead. And I know, Coach Christie might have been happy about it, but there are some other, coaches on the varsity team at the time who were probably not happy and thought it was sign of complacency or weakness, but I mean, that wasn't it at all. I wanted to play the game that I love and, be around some awesome dudes. Like, yeah.
And then also, when Mr. Christie brought up how you were a prefect to his daughter, and
Yeah.
he really remembered like you being just such a good, reliable like person. So, and obviously you're talking about how you kind of craved a leadership role. How do you think Severn kind of helped you there, like where you could go out and get the leadership roles, or do you think it was more like self-driven that like you just really wanted
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. Like, there's definitely something to be said about, the habits that you get taught from a young age in the home, and having, great parents. Like, my mom was an incredible mother, and, she was also the upper school head for a couple of years at Severn too. So that kind of helps. But I mean, it starts with just, giving you the tools to succeed at first from a young age. And then once you get to Severn, what is it? Courage to follow.
Wisdom.
Wisdom to follow, courage to lead.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like it says it right there in the mission statement. Like, yes, there are times where you're going to need like a strong leader, and you got to be ready for those times. But there's also times, you just need to sit down and shut up and just follow somebody. And, at that point in my life, it was time for me to lead, I guess. And, being a prefect, I had to perform those duties to the best of your ability. And I mean, when you have like kids at Severn who are just, I mean, honestly, I think some of the best, like, just overall people in the state of Maryland for sure. It's really easy to, want to be motivated to, lead them and help them in any way you can. Because I mean, if you look at Coach Christie's daughter, she's at the Naval Academy right now. Like, she's doing great things for her life. And, I still remember like all the kids in that advisory, and I talked to some of them, Alex Honick, forget Bailey's last name, Carter Austin, like all those guys. Like, I still remember them and could name them all for you right now. But like, it's not just the caliber of, like you're talking about me as a leader, but it's also, the caliber of the people that you have as followers as well. Like, Severn prepares you so well for that, because you know how to do both. I think there's a lot of kids from other colleges or a lot of kids from other high schools who go into college, and they'll either be taught that they need to be a follower or they need to be a leader, and they don't have the neuroplasticity to be able to do both. And I think that's something that Severn teaches very well. And then once you get older and get into those sort of leadership spots, you're ready for it. And then in the same vein, you know how to follow.
Okay, so you have a lot there. I guess like being a prefect, I personally being a prefect, I can see a lot with that. Like, I guess my own advisory, like they're all, it doesn't really take much to, I guess, be a good prefect when they're like so well behaved and they're young as well. So yeah, definitely. And I guess leaving them, I'll definitely remember all of them as well. So I guess I relate to you on that aspect. But I guess going back to, your time at West Point, because you're still there. I guess you're about to graduate too in a couple weeks, right?
Yeah. Yep. 5-year plan. So
yeah. So how did this tournament, like being in like National Rugby Championship tournament, how did that like affect your like being at West Point? Like how are you able to balance like school and sports like together with that?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that was tough. So we left for the national championship game on a Friday, and I had my like culminating capstone project presentation on Thursday. That was a 45-minute presentation all in Arabic. And that's like, it took a lot to prepare for that. And then also trying to, watch film.
Like mentally prepare.
And yeah, and like watch film and try to prepare for the game while also having to do that. Like, that's incredibly difficult. And there's not really much you can do to prepare for that other than, understand that at a certain point, you're going to have to start making sacrifices. And I think, during that week, then also the weeks leading up to it, like, it's not just a sort of week preparation thing in terms of that capstone, but you just sort of have to make sacrifice and tell yourself, like, all right, I'm not going to be sitting at my computer watching Netflix for like 2 hours tonight. Not playing video games, whatever, Clash of Clans, whatever it may be. But yeah, I think one of the big things that helped me the most was, having a planner and setting everything up. Like, it sounds like such a small, mundane task, but if you plan your time out, it makes it so much easier, especially, as a student athlete and you're not afforded, extra, like the extra time that other people are. like I know West Point is not similar to other colleges in that like my schedule is very similar to the one I had in high school.
Yeah.
Like I have classes from 7:30 to 3 every day. But I don't get back to my room until 8 p.m. from rugby practice. But yeah,
That sounds like
yeah, I mean, it is. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's not, but having a planner and learning good time management. Actually, the time management piece learned at Severn, one of the most valuable things. Like that was something that made the transition from high school to college so easy. Was already establishing really good habits. So yeah, planner and time management, incredible.
Like straight from like Severn freshman year when they give you the planner. I was telling you just got to use it and like forcing you to use it. It just sounds like something you just carried right through.
Yeah, dude, 100%. So valuable.
And I mean, obviously, you were prepared for these games or this game. Like, I guess MVP. You had what? I don't know. I'm just confused on how rugby works, but after reading the stats, it looked pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, we got a heck of a team. So
yeah, definitely. I guess.
Yeah, and you kind of quickly touched on like the sacrifice needed and like how West Point's different from other colleges. What kind of drew you to that? Because obviously it is a different almost lifestyle than like going to like a state school or like a big university like that. So what kind of attracted you to that?
Well, Severn does have close proximity to the Naval Academy, and my brother ended up going to Navy. So I think that was maybe a little piece of it. But also, I don't know, I just sort of felt like I was different in high school. Like there are certain things that didn't bother me and certain things that I sort of decided from a young age that I wanted to do. And I figured like I wasn't worried about fitting in at other colleges, like at all. Like I knew wherever I went, I'd be happy. But I thought that I guess West Point would have been the best place that would, amplify my skills the most. And so just sort of like make me the best person I could be. Because it would challenge me on more levels than just, academic and social. I think the two biggest pieces that West Point has really taught me is teaching me how to fail. Like, to be completely honest, like you can work really hard here and still fail. And that's just like a part of life. And I think I hadn't really learned that very much before because I'd always, worked really hard and done well. But then, there are some things you mess up, like having your socks facing the wrong way in your drawer and getting failed for an inspection. Like, small thing, really stupid, but you learn how to deal with that failure and move forward. But yeah, I mean, I think I just wanted more out of my college experience than, the academic and social aspect.
Yeah, it's very honorable. I guess I'm gonna lead into is recently we just interviewed one of our classmates, Colin McCarthy. I don't know if you remember any McCarthys from your time at Severn.
Devin and Jack.
Yeah, big soccer fan.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Coach Mac. Yeah.
Colin's about to go to the West Point for soccer, and so we did an interview with him. So is there anything you would say to him or any other kids going into the academies, like for sport, I guess?
Yeah, ask for help. That's another thing that West Point has taught me. Like, you cannot be afraid to ask for help ever, because there's a certain vulnerability that you accept when you ask for help, but it's much better than ask for help and still succeed rather than just sort of try to figure it out yourself and fall flat on your face. Like, I was my actually first semester at West Point at like 10-week grades. I think my GPA was like a 1.9 or something. I have since brought that up. I think I'm gonna be graduating with like a 3.0. So, but like the biggest thing for me was like learning to ask for help. Like, if he's playing soccer there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you have like tutors that you can go to. You also have, teammates that you can reach out to, but like learning to ask for help is the biggest thing that I think that everyone, not only at West Point, but just like in general, if your professors have open hours, like go to them. They will help you out so much. And especially once it comes time to like final grades or whatever, if they're looking at participation points, if you're in their office talking to them, like they're going to give you 100% of those participation points every time. So,
And then kind of going back to rugby, rugby kind of is like an underappreciated, I feel like kind of just underdeveloped sport in America for how cool it is. I mean, I don't even know a lot about rugby. If I've watched it, sometimes I'm always like, why don't I watch this more?
It looks cool when you see the highlights, though.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But obviously your time at West Point's kind of coming to a close. Do you have any plans to continue your rugby career? And if so, can you kind of like explain what that path is like? Because it's obviously in America, it's not probably similar to like any other major sport like the NBA or NFL. There's like a draft. Like,
Yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned that. So yeah, I submitted a pro sports packet back in October. So there's an exemption where I could delay my commission into the Army and pursue a career in pro rugby, and that's actually what I'm doing right now. I'm still waiting on approval from the Secretary of Defense, but right now I'm looking at these two opportunities over the summer. The Collegiate Rugby Shield and then the Rugby Showcase, which is like the Senior Bowl in like football equivalent, and then the Combine and football equivalent, and then the draft is in August. So I'm looking to do that. Again, still waiting on approval from Secretary of Defense to sign that off. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to. We'll see what happens.
I mean, we've seen that. I guess we've seen that before with like Navy football players going to the NFL or other academy players. So I guess we hope the best for you in that aspect.
Yeah, appreciate it. I mean, there's so much uncertainty because, NFL, you make the big bucks and a lot of publicity for the Army or for the Army or Navy, whatever. But rugby, not so much. So who knows?
But I guess like how does so would that be for an American league? So how does that work? It would be like a draft, and how many?
How's that? Yeah. Like? So there's you said it. It's not a very big sport, but there is actually a professional rugby league. It's called Major League Rugby. There's 13 teams across the country. So it's similar to the NFL structure, and there's going to be like a draft and everything in August. So based on that, I could be headed, anywhere. There is a team in DC, so that would be cool. But then, honestly, I'd love to just play rugby. It doesn't really matter what team I get drafted by.
And then building off that, kind of how rugby is kind of not as popular of a sport, how do you think the game kind of expands? Because I feel like it's almost, there is demand for, like, there are some schools kind of like Severn in the area that have a team, and I feel like the roster is instantly filled. Like, there's been new teams, and like Spalding recently got a rugby team. I feel like the roster was just instantly like filled. How do you think that kind of expands, and like maybe more schools like Severn pick it up?
Well, yeah, I think the biggest thing for rugby is just, getting out there and getting exposure. And I think one of the reasons that teams are filling up this fast is because the other thing is people don't realize rugby is actually safer than football. Like a lot, like that is very slept on. But, since you don't have the pads, you don't have the weapon attached to your head, you have to be very mindful of, every time you go into contact. That's something that I struggled with my first year of playing rugby. Ended up messing up my neck and shoulders pretty bad because I was trying to tackle like I was wearing shoulder pads. But expanding the game, honestly, I think it's just, exposure. Because I know I've never heard anyone say bad things about the sport of rugby. Like, it's always like, oh man, that sport is awesome. So much fun to watch, so much fun to play, whatever, yada, yada, yada. But I think there's also this, stigma for parents in general about like starting at a young age, like seeing some dude with a broken nose or something, and just like blood streaming down their face, whatever it is. But they see that and they're like, I don't know if I want to let my kid do that. But then, all these studies about football injuries and stuff is coming out, and you start to think maybe there's, something else we can do. And I think that's where rugby comes in and sort of undercuts football. It's like, hey, this is like, don't get me wrong, love high school football, some of the best memories I've had, but I think rugby is the safer alternative, and you still get, you appeal to the barbaric side in everyone, where it's like, I want to see some people hate each other. I mean, I think it sounds kind of shallow on my part, but yeah, that's where I see it. Because the other thing is, like, rugby is growing on an international stage. Like, it's not big in the U.S., but once it becomes big in the U.S., like, I think we're gonna have one of the best teams in the world. Just because, like, if you think about some of these NFL dudes, if they were to play rugby, like Adrian Peterson, raw. Calvin Johnson, like raw, they'd all be insane at rugby.
Yeah,
just because they're crazy athletes. I mean, that's what I want to see in the future. But if that happens, then you don't have guys like me playing pro rugby. It just wouldn't be good enough.
So you got your thresholds right now before the NFL players go over.
Exactly. got to hit in the sweet spot. My time's now.
So I guess we're like wrapping stuff on the close. I guess before we end, I guess how do you think, I guess, growing up the Maryland area, DMV area, like with sports and the culture around it, how do you think that helped you as an athlete, like leading up to now?
I think lacrosse is huge in Maryland,
Mhm.
and I mean I love the sport. I hate a lot of the stuff that surrounds the sport, like
Culture, or
yeah, I mean the culture, the politics of like you have to commit by your freshman year.
Mhm.
That really sucks. But I mean, one thing that is incredibly valuable about the sport of lacrosse is like how high the level of competition is.
definitely.
Like it teaches you from a very young age that you have to work really hard if you want to get anywhere. So I mean, you got kids hitting the wall like when they're playing pee wee lacrosse, and they're just like sitting there throwing a ball against the wall. And I think that's like an incredibly valuable lesson that a lot of kids learn at a young age, especially in Maryland in general, is just learning how to work hard. And I think that has helped me more than anything, because you know I was one of those kids who's just like, I want to play lacrosse, so I'm going to just throw this ball against the wall for an hour every day. And it like seems very dumb, very mundane, but you build a habit, and then it feels weird not to do that. So then now you do that with every sport, like whether it be football, basketball, soccer, whatever. So then by the time I'm in college, it feels weird not to be staying after practice and doing some extra work, because back in, you know, elementary school, middle school, you had half the team staying after practice and throwing the ball up against the wall, and you were weird if you weren't putting in the extra work. And like that's strictly for lacrosse. Like that's something that I think is very isolated to Maryland, and you don't recognize it until you leave Maryland and you're like, wow, like these caliber of lacrosse players are so much different from Maryland versus everywhere else. And I think, I mean, obviously that's where most of my experience is, but that's one thing I see.
Well, that's all we have for you, Darby. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. It's been great talking to you. Like stuff.
Appreciate it. Appreciate y'all.